Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to today's teleconsultation session on social media and using web analytics for improved customer insights and interaction. This is another teleconsultation organized by the Asian Banker Research, and we want to address today the issue how we can really use web analytics actually to improve customer interaction. I think there has been a great deal said about and written about the good, bad, and ugly of actually web analytics, but here we are going to boil down the debate in a few big issues we face as we improve our understanding and implementation of web analytics in financial institutions. And some of the questions we would like to address. Is what information and data are actually available for banks that could be harvested on their websites. Second, also an understanding about the limitations in web analytics, what actually you can do on the web in terms of tracking and measuring. And then we would like to talk a little bit about the key challenges in implementing and using web analytics, especially how banks can extract and track the flow of information on their websites. Last but not least, what elements are required in building actually a relevant scorecard and measuring a web and social media content. We will start this session today with two of our invited speakers. I'm glad to have them. We have them with us. One is Mr. Bertrand Tay, and the other is Sean Browning. Sean Browning is a frequent speaker at web analytics events and has over 13 years of experience in the web analytics industry, providing strategy and implementation for its partners. I think the expertise Sean will bring to this session will be in particular about how to identify actually and track customer behavior on online websites. Then we have Bertrand Tay. He's a digital marketing consultant with Click-Through, who is specializing in the area of web analytics, search engine marketing, and search engine optimization. And both of them have done quite some work actually with corporates and financial institutions already. And we will draw out some of the questions mentioned with our two panelists. I will provide time for questions and answers at the end of the session. Before I, however, start, I would like to highlight actually two house rules. First one, the link to the teleconsultation session has been sent to all of you, so you can log in from your computer actually to follow the presentations on your screen while the presenter is going through them. Second, and that is pertaining to how you can ask questions and post questions. You have two options here. You can write your question into the chat box at the bottom right corner. At the bottom right corner of the WebEx screen. If you go there, you will see a screen there which you can type in your things. And you can do this either during the session, during the presentation, or at the end. Or you can press actually, another option would be the hand icon below the list of attendees. And this is in the right column of your screen again. So this will register your intention with us, and we're going to then open the line basically for you to ask the question. All right. Nothing else to do. I will just, we should start straight into with Bertrand's presentation. And Bertrand, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me, Chris. Good morning to all. My name is Bertrand. As mentioned, I'm a consultant with Click-Through. So I help set up and manage web analytics accounts across a wide spectrum of verticals, including banking. I did a quick check on some of the Malaysian bank websites yesterday. I noticed some of you are on Google Analytics, Some are still using log file solutions like AWStats. So anyway, for this rapid fire presentation, 10-minute presentation, I'll just share with everyone some tips on web analytics, and hopefully this will provide you guys with the impetus to move towards a very data-driven culture in your company. Okay, so this is how I see web analytics evolving in Singapore at this very moment. All right. And the thing is, from what I see in the online marketing industry overall, Singapore is a really good barometer for what's going to happen next in Malaysia. So if you guys practice what I'm going to mention now, you're going to have first mover advantage. All right. There will be two tracks. There will be two tracks in the very near future. So on one track, which is on the left-hand side, you have the typical web analytics tracking. You'll be tracking users on your own web properties. So for instance, your websites, your mobile phone apps, and even your mobile site. Right? And that's good because you want to find out how users behave and interact with your content, what do they like, who are your important users, and so on. But on the other hand, you also have to survey what's not on your web properties. You have to find out what different people on different mediums, so you've got your forums, your social media, blogs. You want to find out what these people are talking about your brands, your products as well. And the thing is, you have no control over what these people are saying. All right? So that's the challenge right there. So if you want to excel in online, you've got to cover these two areas. So let's talk about measuring and surveying. That's right. So for external properties, what we want to understand in terms of tracking is measuring how effective your campaigns from each source is doing. So in this way, web analytics can help you with it. It's not a problem. And you can see actually, for example, in the next slide, I'm using Google Analytics as an example. Yeah, it's really easy to just drill into your campaigns and actually dive into them as well to find out how each are stacking up against one another. Now the thing is, it is also important to track and analyze your engagements online, right? So how would you want to do this? There are two products I can recommend this for this. So the first one in the next slide would be Hootsuite. All right, it's a really basic tool. It's really affordable as well. It's something like six USD a month. So what it does is it monitors the basic stuff of what people are mentioning about you on Twitter with the ad tags. And you can actually track also what actually works for you. So for example, if you release a message out in social media, it can then track for you what's the click-through rate of the link that you provided. So you can then verify if this is what your audience likes, what your audience is interested in, and how to actually package your message to improve interactions. However, if you really want to dive straight deep into this and survey what people are talking about you, understanding how different markets are reacting to you, and so on, you might want to use JMeQ. All right, it's much more expensive. It runs into 4 to 5 digits a month. But it's a really powerful tool of understanding how each market is reacting to you, how different segments of people are actually reacting to your product. So you've got your consumer, you've got your loans. You can really understand much better how these segments of people are doing for you. So now a lot of clients I face, banking included, they like really precise data. The thing about web analytics is that you are not gonna get exact data. All right. So in the next slide, you'll see some examples of what web analytics cannot do. So the thing is, many users have ad blockers, or they don't allow JavaScript to run for them, and so you can't track them with web analytics. You have to get over this. You can't really find out their exact backgrounds or interests unless they are logged in, and you can't accurately track unique visitors. So there's no such thing as 100% reporting for web analytics. So what should you do instead? What you should do is track user intent. All right, find out what's the most popular content for, say, a certain segment of your visitors. All right, you can also measure the effectiveness of how your online marketing efforts are doing. Try to understand the various segments of your users. What do they like? How do they use your site? Is consumer banking stronger than businesses? You know, and also if you're going to do web redesigns, find out which is more effective for you, which gives you better conversions, better sign-up rates. Okay, so for web analytics, it's always important to focus on trends. Okay, knowing that 20% more visitors sign up for a certain product because of the campaign is much more powerful than knowing 1,000 people visited your site today. I think that's the key thing about web analytics. And just some quick tips on web analytics, identifying business objectives, and trying to get your staff as well on board the web analytics train, getting involved in a data-driven culture. So you can set KPIs for them. That's a good start. In web analytics, KPIs are equivalent to metrics. So, for example, you can tie the KPIs to the revenue you get online, the number of transactions, for example, or how much value are you getting for each order, each transaction. And so if you set up something like that for them, they're gonna, by hook or by crook, be very, very focused on what they have to do to boost these numbers up. So I'll give you an example. I'm using a hotel example in this case because personally, I think Sean from VetTrends, we both agree that banks are traditionally a bit slower to take on new challenges in the online space. I think you guys are a bit more conservative, more security and privacy issues. But there are very similar parallels between hotels and banks. You guys are trying to sell stuff online. So for a client we have, the objective was to increase their profitability for their online bookings, all right? So the goals we set for ourselves were to simply sell more rooms, right? So a KPI that we didn't set for their marketers was, for example, how long are people using their site, how many pages are users visiting in a session. These are really pointless KPIs for them. So the kind of KPIs we set for were we tried to increase the number of days visitors want to book their rooms for, and also because they have many online marketing campaigns, we measured how much was the cost for each transaction, and whether we were indeed being very profitable in the online space. And so we also set targets. Now, this example you can imagine can really translate very well into the banking industry as well. So instead of getting more rooms sign-ups, why not increase the number of credit card sign-ups? You know, and so when you think in this track, you're very focused, and suddenly everything becomes clearer. There'll be less data overload, especially because you'll be working towards a specific goal. Yeah, and so that brings me to the end of my quick presentation. If you have any quick queries or questions, or you guys need any help or advice, just visit this link, visit this site. We'll be glad to help.
Charles, thank you so much for for this nice presentation on where the focus actually should be on web analytics. It's not so much looking at the real visitor numbers, is that what I understood, but rather the trends such as conversion, or you mentioned this with the DBS example. I just would like to clarify two things actually. When you're talking about in the first or second slide, you were talking about the sweet spot. Perhaps we can bring that slide up again. That sweet spot you were talking about between tracking your own and surveying external properties. Where do you see today the banks stand there? What is your experience, and how to get to that sweet spot actually?
Okay, so for the banking industry, I'm much more familiar with Singapore. All right. So for Singapore, we've had a few clients recently getting us to do training sessions for their staff on how to engage and how to measure and track and basically just survey what's being said about them online. Now, it's just started, so this has really been picking up this year over the past few months. So I believe in Malaysia, you guys would be doing something like this really soon, and I think this is really critical for your business actually.
I mean, because the reason why I was, throwing this question in was, I think because in the Asian Banker, when we do the research, we see a lot of the top issue in web analytics is really what you're showing here actually, the integration of your own structured data with the unstructured properties of the web, like social media. I think that's where this has been mentioned consistently by all the banks in the region as a key issue, in fact. Yeah. Can we go to the DBS perhaps quickly, the DBS example you were throwing in? You were mentioning here that a not so good KPIs are time on sites and page visits compared to better ones like average value and cost per transaction. How did you come to these KPIs? I mean, were they aligned with other objectives, or why you believe that time on site and page visits are not good KPIs actually in this case?
Yep. So initially, you have a quick discussion with the clients. You try to understand what they want to do. So it's straight away they tell you, oh, look, we want to increase credit card sign-ups. All right. So yeah. So I wouldn't really care that much about time on site and pages per visit anymore. So straight away I'm going to dive into stuff like a number of sign-ups, your average order value, and then work towards increasing this number. And the rest will just fall into place. Rather than working on a KPI like time on site, it's not measurable enough. Yeah.
So it's very much driven by actually the business objective you are putting, or you're having. In fact, that can be very different. So there's no single or a set of standard indicators to track, in fact, the web, customer behavior. And I think for that, I would like at that point of time to bring Sean into the picture. Sean, you have done a lot of things on tracking that, and also have put quite a lot of deal into how we should actually measure and analyze web trends. And I think I would like to give you the floor now to give us some of the ideas you are seeing and having in that matter. Please.
Chris, absolutely. And in the last 24 hours, Chris and Bertrand and I have had some pretty insightful discussions on things that are impacting the financial services industry. And so, there are a lot of questions. There's a lot of new, shiny technology. Got to understand what we need to pay attention to and things that are not quite exactly relevant for this space just yet, but then make sense out of all of this. WebTrends has been around for a very long time, reinvented itself a couple of times, and turned into kind of a really niche player where we're focusing specifically on who is performing certain actions on your site and then turning that into something actionable. And that's where I want to start is, as we are capturing data, right? We're all organizations that are data-driven with lots of information that is available to be collected. But it's not just metrics. It's not just numbers. It's quite a bit more than that. So what I want to share this evening or this morning is capturing the specific practices as it relates to financial service environments. What are some of those key things that other peers, other financial services organizations are doing around the world that would be relevant for this discussion today? I've got 4 best practices that I wanted to introduce, and then we'll go into a specific case study. First is, as we're data-driven, we have lots of data. We want to make sure we capture the important data. Since data includes capturing logins, then you can capture exactly who those individuals on your site. If you think about aggregate anonymous tools, and there's some very large ones that are out there, we don't want to identify individuals as a cookie, right? We want to identify them as their individual user ID or their customer ID or some sort of a login. Once you can capture that, then you can start stitching it together with many other pieces of data. You can capture other things like content areas, maybe the pull-down menus, search terms, or maybe the product areas that someone is looking at. That way you understand what they're looking at, and then you can associate that with item number 1, who they are. Other metrics you can think of, maybe that exist today or maybe are going to exist on a future site in the future, you want to make sure that you collect all of the metrics, collect all the data. Even if it's not exactly relevant at this exact moment, you can still collect it for later on for use for correlation. You can link that data, you can perform offline analysis, you could tie it to that individual user and their profile specifically for personalization. You want to look at other data areas. Maybe it's not just the website. We want to go beyond the website to maybe mobile sites, right, designed for WAP devices or social types of sites like Facebook, Google+, and so forth. Check and see if there's any gaps in your coverage. What other areas do you need to understand? Where do you need to collect data? Figure out a way to capture that information, because now the conversation is about multiple channels. You hear the conversation about website moving over to social and mobile, but it's about multiple channels of people are now using tablets, people are now using mobile devices, people are using social media. How do people interact with you specifically through which devices, through which channels? Keep in mind, if it's social media, you can capture data inside of Facebook, because Facebook now, as of last March, uses an iframe. With an iframe, you can set the tag in the iframe and collect that data too. And then lastly, another area that you want to capture important data and information is when you send email out and someone makes a click on that email and comes back, you can collect that email address of that individual. Now you're getting to a personalized understanding of who this person is, right? If you know their login, You know the content or the search terms they're typing in. You know other metrics that might be important to your business specifically. You're measuring your different websites, mobile sites, social media sites, and you're tracking by email address. Now you are collecting some very important actionable data. Best practice 2 is to measure specific conversion on your site. Specific conversion means you're going to capture particular data points, but you're going to collect all your data points. You don't want to use sampling because sampling could filter out the details that are very important. If you're only looking at 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 items because of sampling because some sort of application can't handle it, then that could be mission critical data that's just not available to you. You want to make sure you're looking at specific variables like login ID and correlating those to other important variables like search term, or someone's login ID in what area of the site they looked at. If someone tells you they're interested in an investment account as opposed to a bank card, you want to make sure your message and targeting is relevant to exactly what they told you they're looking at. You can also correlate login ID and device types and other things, loans, conversion values, mobile device ID, and other details. What you want to do is identify your important metrics. Like I started the conversation, there's a lot of data to collect, but you want to make sure you understand which are important and which are not important, so that way you can really focus on the things that are going to make you money and give you a good return in the short run. You should understand your business drivers. The ones that I've seen when I'm working with organizations such as U.S. Bank or other organizations like M&T are revenue growth. What are, just like Bertrand said a moment ago, average conversions, values, number of conversions? What are those specific metrics that you can focus on and pull out and then measure? What about market growth? Are you increasing your number of new conversions for loans? What kind of products, investment products, banking products, and so forth? How many products per person, right, are you leveraging? Let's grow that. Grow that customer share, grow that market share. And what's your return on marketing, ad spend, and so forth? You'd be able to determine that as well. And then loyalty. If people are using your features and functions, if they're using online banking or mobile banking, they're going to be very sticky. They're going to stick with you and not have to go somewhere else. Not only do we want to collect data, but we want to interact with customers. Once we know who they are by their login, we know what they're looking at by their search terms or click paths, you want to interact with these individuals. Your web analytics can be used to correlate customer behavior, right, just like we discussed with clicks of account status like investments or interesting in loans. And you correlate that so you have a better marketing conversation. It's called segmentation. Let's segment this group of individuals because they're interested in a checking account. Let's segment these individuals because they have high income value. Let's segment these individuals because they're interested in mobile banking. You want to segment these individuals because every different segment gets a different message. If you leverage social media, make sure that if someone asks a question in social media, you have identified someone who's going to respond to that. Normally what we find is, when you're leveraging social media, the customer support group has a login to the Facebook account and Twitter account. So if someone is asking a question, then you have assigned someone to respond to that and interact, because you want to interact not just on the website, but also in social media with your customers. And then online banking, bill pay, mobile banking, since these all require a login, that is your key to join that to your CRM system, your customer relationship management system. Maybe you're not even looking at the web analytic reports. That's perfectly fine. Sales folks, account representatives, customer relationship, customer support individuals are looking at your CRM system, and based on this join key of this login, or customer account ID or what have you, then you understand the conversation. What campaigns did they respond to? What devices are they using to interact? Are they using social media? Are they high net worth, high value individuals? Can you cross-sell to them based on the conversation or the things that they're asking for? You want to be sure that you're understanding whom you're speaking to. And then the best practice is, once you've collected all of this data, pointed specific data, sometimes other additional data that's not necessarily relevant today but might be in the future, you want to make this available for deep analysis. You want to make sure that other financial organizations that are WebTrends customers that are OCBC, HSBC, US Bank, and so forth, they've selected WebTrends not because we have the largest number of customers, but specifically because you can do things with WebTrends you can't do with others. You can collect logins. Don't have privacy concerns. This is something we'll probably touch on here in a few moments. Also, you can export all of your data at no additional cost for the intention of integrating this to your business intelligence systems and other investments that you've made in data analysis. You can perform unlimited correlations. You can take that user ID and correlate it with the search term, user ID and the device type, user ID and what they're seeing in the social media space, cross-sell, upsell, have a better conversation, target market, even segment these individuals, all based on the unlimited correlation that you get with the data collection, the deep enterprise scale data collection. And then you want to be able to integrate this, and this is where I'm going to bring in the case study in just a moment, so you can integrate your digital KPIs, much like what Bertrand was saying a moment ago, with your customer IDs. Do we have below average conversion values? And you'll know that based on time, right? What was it historically? What is it today? Are we better than we were in the past? You can measure that. Market growth. Who are your new converters? How many products does an individual have? How many number of registrations have you collected? What is your cost per registration? Things like this. These are the metrics that you want to capture and measure and understand so you can measure yourself today based on past performance. Profitability based on your marketing spend. Engagement. What is someone's visit length? But not just everybody's average visit length. What about an individual? Are they spending more time with you because you have more products, more investments, more things that are relevant to them? You can tie in your average visit length to an individual's login and understand more about that person. Know their visits. If they're using you, they're not using someone else. Average views per visit, elemental transactions per visit, so forth. And then use this all for offline correlation. High-income customers need your white glove services. This is not something that Web Analytics is going to tell you. This is exactly what Chris was saying at the beginning of the call, which is you cannot replace human interaction. You can put all the technology that you can and buy all the technology available. You still need to have human interaction because none of this can be automated, especially that correlation with your high-income customers, your high-value, high-net-worth individuals. They're going to get the white glove treatment, but you need to be able to parse that out of your data, understand who those people are, and ultimately use your own BI tools, your other investments, integrate the data, make it actionable. Here's a case study for how Barclays, M&T, and Moody's use and make sense out of this massive amount of data that are being collected. Think about all the data just in this morning about how many data devices did you use and open up. Did you already check your email? Did you look online and see that Steve Jobs has already passed away? That happened 36 minutes ago. Things like this. Here's how these guys make sense out of all this behavioral data. What they do is, first they measure how visitors view the content. They're measuring on the website, mobile site, social media sites. They're taking all this information and then trying to figure out who are these individuals and what are they doing. Second, they're analyzing that behavior, understanding how customers are becoming aware of new products, considering what they should do next, converting and actually moving through the process, ultimately to pushing the click button to submit and complete some process. Some examples on the right are applying for one of the check cards, or maybe providing some information for online banking, or maybe they're clicking on a mobile device advertisement and responding to certain campaigns. Once you make that click, request some images, you know who that is based on their device ID or their login ID. But there's ways of collecting the data but understanding more about who that individual visitor is. And then, this is where we all want to get to, but very few are achieving this today. Embrace the personalization. You want to make sure that if you understand who these people are and what they're doing, that you can embrace that and turn it into something meaningful. Because if you are able to turn that into something meaningful, you are doing something very dramatic that nobody else can really achieve. You want to make sure that if someone comes to the website, they're looking at particular areas of the site, then you can figure out what they're looking at and then personalize the content. Here's an example, Claire and Bob, two individuals that come to a particular website. There's no conversion, there's no transaction, they're brand new visitors. They're coming to a banking website and they're making certain clicks. But based on certain information that's being collected, we can measure them and determine their segment, where do they belong, their importance. We can also determine their value based on a point score, right? So if someone is coming to your particular site and they're interested in areas having to do with maybe college savings, and then maybe a couple of days later they look at a video having to do with mobile banking, maybe that's of medium value, where the new account is a high value activity. Maybe the mobile video, the demo video, is more or less medium value. A couple days later, same individual comes back to the site, downloads an application, some sort of web banking file or some sort of an application or mortgage application or loan application. Very high value. This is what we're in business for. And ultimately, maybe this individual is also clicking around and saying, well, if I trust you and your website and your organization so much, I also trust your partners, which is a pretty good trust relationship. Then they're also looking at other offers. What offers are they looking at? That's important as well. That brings in the context of the individual. So let's take these specific details into account and then assign point values to these. We're going to score these individuals. Claire looked at the banking tour, so she gets 50 points. Bob, not so much. Web banking file for an application, 100 points there, very high value. Bob didn't do that. College visit, partner offers, clicking around. Based on the activities and the actions that they're performing, then you can understand there are certain values associated with each individual. Claire's more interested in the mobile interest and the college savings. Bob, a little less mobile, a little more traditional. But what you can do with this information is then you can act on this information. You can act on this data. You can target market. You can segment. You can optimize your website. Talk about targeting. If you know Claire, if Claire is someone who's banking with you already, and you know that login, if you can understand what Claire is looking at, if you know where Claire is, what account this individual has, then you can send a very specific pointed targeted message to Claire. Bob would get a different message based on his performance, his actions. And also, once you're able to send targeted messages, there's something else that you're looking to achieve, which is to customize your website, customize the online experience. Because if you know this information about an individual, as easily as it is to feed it to an email system, it's easy to feed it to your web content system, so that each individual person is going to see something different on the website, on the web page. That's what it is. That's what the smart organizations are doing today, is not just collecting data just for the sake of collecting data, but tying it in together, leveraging other business intelligence systems, leveraging other investments. You're tying all the data, you're collecting the data, and then starting on the left, you're enhancing and integrating that web and mobile content for the financial services and banking arena specifically. CRM system integration, getting the data out of your analytics package, but putting it into the interfaces that your sales and your customer support staff are looking at, which is the CRM system. Or maybe your registration databases, understanding who these people are, what they're doing, what they're typing in, what they're registering for. You want to tie the web data, the digital information, into your existing systems. At the same time, everyone has managers. Everybody needs to see something visual. Everybody needs to have the data presented in a very friendly format. There are user interfaces. You want to see the trends and spark lines. You want to drag and drop the functions to be able to explore and mine the data. You want to build dashboards so you can see what the trends are. How do you measure up today and compare that to last week or last month? You want to show marked improvement over time, and that's the goal for the user interface, is to show you that accomplishment and that trend. But then also, lastly, you want to take this data that's being collected, that's being segmented, you want to be able to export that and put it into your action systems on the right. Customer targeting. It's not good enough that there are people that are just cookies, that are anonymous individuals making clicks on your site. You want to understand who they are, what they're doing, and then target them based on the areas of business that you are going to profit on. You want to serve that particular profitable message to your individual customers, Have them take advantage of the best thing that you can do, but also you get to make a profit. Target them, segment them, personalize that content, and then also leverage your other investments. Import and export data into other databases, business intelligence, and so forth. Teradata is one of those that comes to mind. Organizations that use Teradata on the back end use WebTrends to pull out the digital data, supplement that in with Teradata, and that way you can figure out things like large currency transaction moves. Individuals of high net worth that are coming to your website, but they don't seem to be depositing with you. It might be someplace else that they're depositing. Coming out with that kind of information, when you use the Teradata integration, you're able to really tie all of your behavioral data together to do something with it. Segment, target, optimize, and personalize. And that's what I wanted to describe today. That's what I see around the world through Hong Kong, Singapore. I was there a couple weeks ago. Across the world through India, Europe, and even in North America. Everybody wants to personalize the content better than the competition, because if you can do that, then you win the game and customers become way more loyal. That's where I want to pause there and then hand it back to Chris.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Sean, for this thoughtful insight. I think there have been a couple of areas you touched on which I would like to drill in a little bit deeper. As you know, the devil sits usually in the detail.
Of course.
And until in the meanwhile, while we are waiting for the questions coming in, so please drop your questions either on the chat box or press the hand icon so that we can pull you in. I would like to address the first questions to Sean. Sean, you were mentioning correctly that all what we are doing with web analytics is actually creating better personalization, better actionable insights where we can interact more personally with the client offline. So that's all web analytics for. And to do that, and you said this, to do that, you have to understand who is actually visiting that site and who is the client. And to myself, it's not really like that, I think, straightforward, who is the client, because yes, you have your ID and you have your login and maybe you have your cookies, but are we really able to create a score? And you were showing somehow, on Claire and the other guy, by the time they spend perhaps, or the things they click on, that you can create that score. Now that score is created on exactly what actually indicators and what factors. It's almost most like, I'm suspecting that it's most likely something on timing where the score comes in, but to identify the real value of a customer, how does these, what are these scores composed of? That's my first question. And second, in terms of the existing relationships with clients when they log in, we are fairly know actually what's happening because we know this client already. But if we have new clients or new potential clients browsing our website, how are we going to actually deal with them? Because there's much less known about these guys than about our existing customer. So if you could address perhaps the first question on how much really we can get out of a client in terms of, can we create the real value of a client browsing on our website, and what's behind that scores you have listed on your presentation? Yeah.
Sure. So let's touch on the score idea first of all. In the best practices, one of the things I was identifying is, or one of the things that I mentioned as a best practice was to identify the important content. Right? Are there downloads for loan applications, or are there videos? Or is there some sort of high value, maybe it's one of the drop-down, pull-down menus where there's a particular interest in investment banking versus savings accounts or something like this. When you identify those areas of the site, then you're able to set up in the system a point value, associate a point value, saying if they look at this particular, if they use the mobile website, m.bank.com, then let's assign them certain point values for using the mobile banking. Let's assign them point values for downloading a loan application. So in the score application, there's a way of associating an action and a numeric score to then figure out how people are moving through the process that you've set out and what is their value specifically. Because you have to see their logins, but it doesn't mean anything having one login versus another until you can associate some sort of point value to figure out who's embracing the site a bit more than someone else.
I mean, you are basically then what you're saying is it's a combination to create the value of this browsing customer. It's a combination of the content he's clicking on and the time he's spent on that. Is that the two main factors how you going to you create a score? Basically.
Well, it is the action definitely, and the content, but not necessarily the time. So it's not time-based. Otherwise, that makes the score be more like the number of seconds that someone is interacting with the content. So it's not time. It is a way of saying, here's a piece of content, here's a way of assigning a score or a point value to it. So these are numeric values not associated by time, but associated point values by the content they browse.
Oh, okay. So you create basically an architecture where you assign to each of the contents on your site a value score. Exactly. And depending on that value score, regardless how long the client will spend on that, will identify the value of the customer.
Exactly correct.
Okay. Bertrand, could I have for completeness sake, your view on the issue about how to identify the value and of the customer, and how you identify who that customer really is?
Yeah, sure, Chris. I think Sean's covered it really in depth. Basically, most web analytics tools would have such a feature. I mean, for web trends they call it scores. I mean, in Google Analytics you call it goal values. But the principle is the same. It's to identify which visitor does more for you, and then you really want to concentrate on those visitors instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you would like to. I mean, you have to personalize the actions, going to the customer, right? I'm still not quite convinced about actually whether we can really identify who that person is. Yes, we can probably identify the value of that client, but who that person is, and whether we can identify or predict whether what this person will buy next, or what this person actually will do next by browsing on that site. Is that something where web analytics is also going? I mean, what are the trends in terms of predictive, analysis and predictive behavior?
Well, you've
Sean,
got a... Sorry.
Bertrand, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Bertrand.
Sorry about that, Sean. Well, but for web analytics, what Sean's talking about is tracking these users who log in. So you then track their login, for example, and then find out what they do. And so if they fulfill certain goals, or they've repeatedly visited a certain content, but they haven't signed up yet, for example. So that's something you can look at, which I agree with Sean, where you can actually make contact with that person and understand more, and try to nudge that particular customer into the right direction, which is to make a sign up for you. But the challenge here is that you have a ton of data, a ton of visitors every day. So it can be quite time consuming to actually sift through all this data and really personalize it. But if you have the resources, the manpower to do this, absolutely, you should do this.
Sean, would you? Yeah.
I was going to just complete that thought right there, and that's one of the big challenges these days. Is it's also kind of a misconception as well. Organizations go, wow, I'm going to spend a lot of money on some technology, and now that I've spent money on this technology, it solves all my problems. Not exactly correct, right? you have to spend money on technology, but you also have to fund the people to run that. You have to be able to interpret that information and turn it into something meaningful. So that's one of the challenges and also misconceptions is just simply buying the technology is not good enough. You got to have people to power this, right? I think we touched on that earlier too.
And I believe nothing kills the success of an online analytics capability more than the distrust of the data. As you rightly say, right, you can track certain parts of that, and somehow Bertrand mentioned already that there are limits to what you can track actually to not only identify who the person is, but also to predict actually whether that person is likely to buy a investment product or an insurance product by just browsing through that content in that area of that site. Sean, is that
correct? Yeah, if they're on your site, you know who they are, and they're looking around for not just 1 or 2 clicks or for something shorter than a minute, but if they're spending 3 minutes digesting and consuming the content, that's probably a good measure of relevance, right? If it's information that person's looking at and they're staying on that content for a while, that's a good way to figure out if that's something that's important to them or not.
Okay. Let's move quickly to the. You both mentioned actually some of the KPIs and indicators, and it came very nicely through that. Of course, they have to be aligned to what you really want to achieve. In fact, whether it's more engagement or whether it's revenue conversion or whether it's sign up, it really depends on. But what came really through is shown on your presentation that the conversion indicators seem to be a prominent an important indicator to have and to look at. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, the conversion indicators, are trying to help. If someone gets close enough to the goal but not exactly completing the process, they might need a little help or assistance. And that's what we want to do is improve business, right? We want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward and we're making the experience as pleasant as possible. So you always want to measure those conversion points, those things that are most important to drive the business forward. Because if you're measuring that, then you can either manually have a person reach out and fix that problem, or you can use technology to improve that, figure out where the errors and the problems are, and then automatically process that and improve that process. So you always want to measure those conversion points so you can improve that. Yeah.
You also highlighted that you should correlate vital visitor level metrics without limit, and you listed a couple of them. I would be interested in, from your work and experience with the industry, what are some of the top first tier metrics you probably banks need to track when they're tracking their websites?
Well, the value of the most. Well, of course, banks want to make sure that they are embracing the customers to secure funds and to fund bank accounts and increase the number of accounts and collect money, right? So you want to make sure you're securing as many individuals as you can that can properly fund an account, checking or savings or otherwise, set up the auto draft, auto pay, so that way their paycheck is automatically being deposited. So you're looking for those kinds of patterns. You're looking for those that with every transaction of a credit card or a debit card, you're making some money off of that as well. So you want to make sure that if someone has this particular charge card, maybe they'd be interested in this other one as well. Maybe if they could fill their whole wallet with all of your charge cards and not have any of the competitors, then that's just more money that's in the right direction. So you look at those patterns, figure out who are those high potential individuals, and start there. And then figure out how to maximize that opportunity.
Okay. We have a few more minutes left actually. So if anybody would like to come in and pose a question, please do so. You can do that in the chat box. The issue which I would like to address is the challenges. You mentioned a couple of them already from Bertrand, from your work and with the industry and with the FIs and corporates. what are the key challenges banks could avoid in establishing and building web analytics capabilities? What should banks not do, in fact, to build that?
Well, if they haven't really done web analytics in depth, they need to be open-minded about it. You tend to see a lot of red tape, especially with the initial implementations for banks. So they have to be open-minded about this. And security and privacy issues as well. They really have to open up to a vendor like maybe WebTrends or an agency like us, ClickThrough, to really work with their IT department and really set things up properly, testing whether the setup's correct, customizing codes for their needs, understanding exactly what they want to track. All these are very important for banks.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sean, yeah, thank you, Bentra. From a subject matter, from an operational perspective, what do you see actually financial institutions get bogged down with when it comes to establishing these things? I mean, what are some of the pitfalls they need to be mindful of?
I missed that might have been
yes.
me too. I didn't hear that part there.
It's okay. What I would like to rephrase is actually what the banks have to be mindful of when they are implementing web analytics capabilities. What you see are some of the top torch points, operational torch points in banks, which usually slows down the whole building of the capabilities.
One of the things that come to mind is collecting data in Google Analytics, because this is an organization that is collecting data for their own marketing purposes, where there's no service level agreement, there are some security concerns. When the service goes down, which it does, then there's no form of recourse. So to use a free service, you always want to watch out for that, for security reasons, but also for performance reasons, and also service level agreement types of data availability reasons. That's always the one big concern, so you never want to do something like this. But you also want to look out for being able to, if it's your data, being able to obtain that data. Because if the data has been collected, one thing that we need to look out for is, how do you get a hold of that information? How do you get the raw data to then analyze it yourself? Even in AW Stats or some sort of smaller package that can really chew through a lot of data, how do you get that raw data that's collected so you can analyze it in different systems for different purposes? That's one thing you want to look out for.
Yeah.
And then another idea is to also not underfund the project, because many times one of the things that happens is there's this great idea and it gets presented to the group, and then they're moving forward, but it's not properly funded to be able to implement this properly, collect and turn the data into something actionable, and then really attain those lofty goals that were really set out. So things always turn out to be more expensive than the sales guy says it's going to be, of course. And so you always want to keep that as high-level executives on this conversation today. You want to make sure that you hear what the price is going to be from the sales guy who says what it's going to cost, but also kind of pad that amount, because you don't want to underfund the project and then kind of run short and run out of budget when the time comes to really turn this into something.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, thank you so much for that comment. I would just like to wrap up. I think what we have, in fact, focused on is really, and what came through, that the focus is on the trends when customers spend time on the web, and not just the pure numbers. It is really a matter of really creating a score, a value score online, which allows us to identify not only who the customer is, but also the value of it, and to then follow up with a much more personalized interaction with a customer than what can be done, without that. Of course, the issue is still how you combine and integrate and find that sweet spot between your unstructured data out there and actually your structured data you have control of within your own properties. And I think that's something we would have probably needed to address this in another session in much more depth, because that's one of the top issues. All these problems, I think what the industry is still in infancy, and that there's a lot of education which needs to be done. I think we have to accept the fact that data, and that also came clearly through, will not match 100%. You will not have 100% clean data on that, and it's good to not only educate yourself, to know how to use that in any way, even so you don't have these 100%. Take continuous actions and accept that everything will not work, but know that if you don't start making changes now using testing platforms or other pilot projects, I think we will continue to see the same conversion levels or worse than where we are right now. And that would, that issue about looking into conversion levels in terms of the indicators came out very, very strongly, and we should take this into account. I would like to thank both of our presenters, Sean from the US, thanks for coming in at that time, and Bertrand, I think you're in Singapore here. Thanks for spending time and discussing this issue with you. For the follow-up, we will put a consolidated proceedings on our website, so you will be able to download the presentations as well as, in fact, the points discussed. As for the moment, I don't have much more to say. Thank you very much for another teleconsultation of the Asian Banker Research. I would like to thank you and wish you a nice day ahead. Thank you very much.